For us, success and innovation was ultimately getting our technology into the hands or onto the wrists of customers. It was people using the idea that we had in that lab just over there and using it to solve the problems that they emailed us saying they had, whether that's my office is too hot or too cold, I don't want to go to the movies because the movie theater is always freezing, or I have a medical condition and can't regulate my body temperature as well as I want. Emphasizing the importance of failure is a really powerful perspective, and ultimately, success is just getting up after each time you fail and saying, I'm going to keep going. It's really a necessary part of the process and not something you can avoid if you're trying to do something new and be innovative. And for us, we had failures all across the process, from, it didn't work for this particular customer segment who we thought it would, to the actual development of the technology. And I think it's easiest to focus on that because there was just so many examples. I mean, every prototype that we made going to this one failed for various reasons. And it took us 18 months from when we conceived of the idea to the point where we had a prototype that was fully wearable and that you could give to someone to use for a week without it breaking. And so that meant every prototype before that, we'd be really proud and it would be done, and then you give it to someone and they would say, oh, the user interface broke, or the battery didn't work, or the printed circuit board, the wires were reversed and you had to use this special charging plug because otherwise you're going to short circuit the whole thing. And then even in the manufacturing, when this design was done, actually getting it into production, there were all sorts of issues related to connectors and soldering and wires and cable harnesses, and each one of those caused a failure and caused a delay and had financial implications as well. And ultimately, we were fortunate enough to be able to overcome them and get to market. But it was anything but a straight line, and we wouldn't have been able to arrive at this design that we have today without having made all of the mistakes prototyping. So we knew kind of what to avoid and what to focus on. So I'd say when I think about our most important lessons learned, number one is to start with the customer in mind. Ultimately, as I think Bill Aulet from the MIT Entrepreneurship Center says, a business exists only if it has paying customers. And so starting with who's going to give you money for whatever you're doing and saying, what do I ultimately need to do to make them satisfied? And if you do that, everything else will take care of itself, whether your business is a restaurant or a technology company or a software platform or real estate. Starting with the person who you need to keep satisfied and engaged, and working backwards, saying, what is their problem? How can I solve it? How do I get my solution to them? What do I charge them? If you really keep the customer at the center, that's what we've found is the most important thing to designing something that actually gets used, that people are willing to pay for, and ultimately that they feel like makes a difference in their life. So that's one thing. And then I think that the second thing is just going back to what I was talking earlier about failure. It's expect to have your ideas not work, expect failures. I talk about the idea of anticipating adversity. Like when you're planning your next work cycle or planning your road mapping your project, make a list of, hey, these are the biggest risks, this is what I think is going to go wrong. And that way, when you do, you'd say, okay, it's not totally unexpected, you're mentally prepared for it, maybe you even have a plan of what to do with it. And so that, you're just saying it's not a straight line, things are going to go wrong, I know that, I'm prepared for that, and that way when it happens, you're able to react to it, I think, emotionally better and ultimately find a solution.